Hello and welcome to Show and Tell with me, Stephen Leslie, the series where I show you some photographs and then tell you about them. And this is episode 4, and as you can see, it's a no expense spared Halloween special. I've got some creepy spiders here and a Halloween pumpkin, which maybe I need to change the lighting for you to fully appreciate the majesty of this thing. Hang on a second. See, look at that. Look at that, isn't that amazing? That's meant to be a camera. That's what happens when you get two 12-year-olds on half term and force them to carve your pumpkin for you as a special effect. Absolute rubbish. Anyway, moving on. So, Halloween, yes. So, obviously, when I first thought of this episode, I thought it would be easy, a piece of piss. I'll just show you some creepy, spooky Halloween photos, and that'll be that. So, when I started doing my research, I had some stuff in mind, like the creepy mask and doll photos of Ralph Eugene Meatyard, many of which are echoed in this Diane Arbus photo from around the same period. But the more costume and dressing up photos I found, like this one by William Eggleston, or this far more recent and absolutely great one by Berger, the less I could actually think of to say. People in costumes are quite often just people in costumes. They're dressing up on purpose. They're showing off. They're performing for the camera. So there's not actually that much that I can tell you about these photos. This is one of my own, which just about works, but I wanted something a bit deeper. I wanted a visual mood that I could sink my teeth into. I think that I was being too literal in my early research. I didn't have to have photos that were taken on Halloween or of people dressing up or as zombies. I was looking more for a visual mood. I found another Eggleston photo, which is tremendous and looks like it could be a still from a horror film. And what the hell is that lurking in the corner? This was more what I was looking for. This was genuinely disconcerting and creepy, an image that was both menacing and worrying. The same goes for this great Jeff Mermelstein photo. What the hell has that pigeon just gone and done? It's brilliant. And so I decided this was the kind of stuff I really wanted to look at. But as I got deeper into my research, I found a strange, some might say uncanny, thing was happening. Two photographers kept on coming up, and they initially seemed very, very different. So I want to talk about them today because they both lay claim to a kind of particularly American Halloween-y weirdness, for want of a better term. But as you'll see, only one of them, in my opinion, is the real deal. So today we're going to take a look at the work of Joel Sternfeld and Gregory Crewdson. So we're going to start with Joel Sternfeld, who is the older of the two, and there's something that we have to touch upon right at the start. There's absolutely no way of avoiding this. So we might as well just deal with it up front and then move on. But Joel Sternfeld's hair is one of the greatest, most impressive mops in all of photography. Now, I'm going to try and move on from this admittedly trivial point as quickly as possible, but there is something worth considering here with Joel's hair, because the fact is there really are not many photos of him online at all. Hardly any, in fact. Last week, I did a film on the also very impressively coiffured Marc Reboux, and there were thousands of shots of him and his locks, but Joel Sternfeld has hardly been captured at all. And I think that's because he's always off working alone. He doesn't really court any publicity. He's a serious photographer, and that's worth keeping in mind. So this is the earliest photo I can find of him here. I have no idea when this was taken or who took it. It's just an anonymous photo floating around on the web, but I reckon Sternfeld is probably in his late 30s or early 40s here, and he's got a great head of hair. But now, compare it with this photo, which is just a screen grab from a video I found online, but I think it was in 2019, so Sternfeld would have been in his early 70s now, and the hair is still all there, still amazing and thick, although there does seem to be a small chunk missing here. Maybe he just slept on it awkwardly, and it shows absolutely no sign of thinning. Phenomenal. But enough about Joel Sternfeld's hair. That's not what this video is about, honest. What I want to talk about today are his photographs. And one of the interesting things to me is that Sternfeld started off as a street photographer, and he's always worked in colour, which at the time was a fairly radical thing to do. So all the photos I'm about to show you, or most of them, come from this fantastic anthology which is called First Pictures, and it involves the first 4 of his projects. Happy Anniversary Sweetie Face, Nag's Head, Rush Hour, finally At the Mall, New Jersey. And yes, obviously there were other serious photographers out there who had also been working in colour for some time, each doing their own thing. People like Helen Levitt, Joel Meyerowitz, and William Eggleston all spring to mind, but all of them began working in black and white and then switched to colour. Sternfeld has, as far as I can see, only ever worked in colour. He taught himself about the importance of developing a palate. And here's the thing, he's always been alert to that sense of uncomfort or disquiet, a mood lurking just below the surface of American life. So Happy Anniversary Sweetie Face opens with 2 photos from New York City, and both of them perfectly capture that kind of uncomfortable Halloween feel, for want of a better term, that I want to focus on today. The first photo is also weirdly the only vertical image in the book, but it's instantly disturbing and disquieting. The pram has fallen over. Is the baby okay? Is there even a baby? We can't see what is under that yellow sheet, but life goes on around as normal while a potential tragedy plays out for Sternfeld's camera. And there's more. Look at this one, the second image in the book. A screaming kid pretends to have devil horns while a man just passes by oblivious or not wanting to get involved. Or look at this one, an image that only works in colour. It's all about the thick blood red of the ketchup bottles draining into each other. This book is just full of these images that have that Halloween feel I'm talking about. It's just fantastic. Look at this one, of the baby precariously balanced in the laundry basket. Or this, of the chained up wheelchair. It's so Lynchian, it's almost a parody, but it's pre-Lynch. Every one of these 4 early projects contains this air of menace, this disturbing mood. This next one is from Nag's Head. Why are the police here? What has this bloke done? And is this girl yawning or screaming? What's caused her to do this? Or this one from Rush Hour. Look at this bloke on the left. Is that a wig? It must be. And finally, this shot from At the Mole. What the hell is happening in the sky? Look how they're all looking off in different directions. What's approaching? It can't be good. It's foreboding. It portends ill. But crucially, not all of Sternfeld's early work has this sense of brooding or menace. And I think this is really, really important. He's aware of the variety of life. He's aware that other stuff goes on. It's not all terrible. So take a look at this one, which is about nothing more than the joys of being young. Or just shopping. Sternfeld's great power, to me, is his range. And the photographic powers that be obviously thought the same, because this early work was good enough that it won Sternfeld not 1, but 2 Guggenheim grants. Now, the money he got was originally for him to go and continue his early New York City work, handheld, streety stuff, but he decided that he wanted to go and do something else. He wanted to go on a road trip and follow in the footsteps of his 2 great photographic heroes. Walker Evans, whose American Photographs came out in 1938 and was a record of America just after the Great Depression, and then Robert Frank's The Americans, which was published in 1959, both of which are classic black and white road trip books that effectively act as 2 surveys of America at different points in history 20 years apart. They involved a great deal of travel in order to present a broad picture of as much of the country as possible. And Sternfeld was profoundly influenced by their grand scope. He said that his truth began with Walker Evans, and of Frank's The Americans he said that I would look at it before I went to sleep, and in the morning I would reach for it like a smoker reaches for a cigarette. So when Sternfeld set off to do his own survey of America 20 years after Frank's, he called it American Prospects. But the main difference was that he wasn't going to shoot it in black and white, he was going to do it in colour. And also he wasn't going to do it handheld, but he was going to use a large format 8x10 camera. He wanted his photographs to be more like paintings and compose them immaculately, but crucially, he never lost his street sensibility. So Sternfeld actually went and spent his Guggenheim money on a camper van, which you can just about see parked up in the back of this shot, and an 8x10 camera, and off he went. Although that's not quite true, because he did a lot of planning in advance. He tested different lenses and film stocks and papers to achieve the look he was after, and he planned his journeys meticulously. He studied weather patterns and seasonality. He wasn't going on just any random road trip. He was following consistent patterns of light to have a similar feel across the whole project. So even though American Prospects took him just over a decade to make, it was first published in 1987, it retains a consistency of tone and look. If he was lucky, he would be able to afford to shoot just a few negatives a day, and then he would spend up to 6 months without seeing what he'd shot. There was no chimping for Joel Sternfeld. He'd have to presume and hope that he got the shot. And he did, in spades. So finally, coming back to my earlier point about photos that have an eerie or Halloween-y kind of mood, let's consider some of these. What's this bloke up to? Is he hiding? Waiting? The presence of that red kid's truck is just brilliant. But is it really menacing or far more innocent? Is he just checking the hose on the grass? But then why does he seem to have his hands down his trousers? I adore this one. There's such a sense of menace and threat. Surely that flimsy net can't keep the baby safe from all the water this massive dam has been built to hold back. Well, of course it can't. Because look, this is what the elements can do to America. It might take you a few moments to notice the second car here, down at the bottom, swept away by a flash flood. The image is seductive, but perfectly outlines the battle constantly raging between humanity and nature. As does this one, taken after a tornado in Nebraska. The people nowhere to be seen, but the fridge still bursting with food, the walls ripped away, consumerism laid bare and exposed. Or this tragic photo from June 16, 1979, showing 41 dead whales beached on the Oregon coast. I'm in real danger of just geeking out here and showing you endless photos from American prospects, but I have to consider two more, and they're probably the most well-known from the whole project, but there's no way that I can talk about the mood I've been referring to without mentioning them. So the first one is this, which is called Exhausted Renegade Elephant, Woodland, Washington, June 1979. Now this is obviously a truly great photograph. Apparently Sternfeld put the camera up on his camper van roof to take the shot, and it's made even better by the distance he kept. So many other photographers would have tried to get closer, to be in with the crowd. But remember, Sternfeld has a thesis. He had a unified style he was working towards, and so this completely chance encounter with an escaped elephant, something bizarre that America threw at him during his journey, needed to be treated in a certain way in order for it to fit within the greater body of work. By the way, the title of this photograph, Exhausted Renegade Elephant, is surely a killer name for a heavy metal band. And if you combine it with a Joel Sternfeld wig, well, you get the picture. But enough of that. The second photograph is probably even more famous, and it's this one of a burning house in front of a pumpkin field in McLean, Virginia, December 1978. So it's at least a full month after Halloween. The unsold pumpkins are rotting, and the fireman is maybe trying to grab himself a bargain. Now there's much more to be said about both of those photographs, but I'm going to wait and come back to them because at the start of all this I said I was going to talk about two photographers today, and I need to get on to the second one, and his name is Gregory Crewdson. So he's younger than Sternfeld, and while Sternfeld was sleeping in his camper van and crisscrossing the country taking future iconic photographs with an 8x10 film camera, what was Gregory Crewdson doing, I hear you ask? Well, I can show you what he was doing. He was doing this. He was playing rhythm guitar in a New York power pop band called the Speedies, who had a brief string of minor hits, including that annoyingly catchy one called Let Me Take Your Photo in 1979. Crewdson is there, that's him, or you can see him on the back of the single. And yes, he's also got good hair, which he's kept. Not as great as Sternfeld's, but nothing to be sniffed at. Interestingly, on the back of another single, he's referred to not as Gregory Crewdson, but as Greg Zap Crewdson. So that's how I'll refer to him for the rest of this film. Now obviously we all get up to ridiculous antics in our teens, and Greg Zapp was only 17 at the time, and the Speedies went on to open for the Undertones, Gang of Four, and astonishingly they even played with the Jam at the Palladium. So who am I to take the piss? Anyway, Greg Zapp left the Speedies, grew up a bit, got into photography, and became obsessed with the work of, can you guess? Yeah, that's right, Joel Sternfeld. He of Exhausted Renegade Elephant fame. And let me tell you, Exhausted Renegade Elephant, the heavy metal band, would never ever have let the Speedies open for them at the Palladium. No way. Anyway, Greg Zapp is on record as saying he got so obsessed with the work of Joel Sternfeld that he went and took an internship at the Daniel Wolfe Gallery where Sternfeld was exhibiting just so he could meet him. And apparently Greg Zapp and Sternfeld remain best bros and buddies to this day. But it really should be noted that their techniques, and I think their overriding philosophies and concerns, are incredibly different. Greg Zapp Crewdson is famous for making elaborately large-scale photos. He started with an 8x10 film camera, just like his hero Joel Sternfeld, but now he works with a digital Phase 1 camera. But the real difference between the two of them is that Zapp doesn't work from real life. He stages all of his images meticulously, and the overriding, no, actually make that the only real theme of them all, is that something creepy and not quite right is always going on. He's obsessed with bizarre and surreal events, and people lying in puddles, or being illuminated by beams of light, or uprooting their floorboards, or staring off into the distance, quite often while pregnant, or naked and pregnant. And to achieve all this, he employs a small army. He has a casting director and crew. He builds sets. He even has a director of photography and a camera operator to press the shutter for him. And that's all fine, really. Here's some footage of Joel Sternfeld, probably aged about 55, carrying his own 8x10 camera. And here's some footage of Greg Zapp having his carried for him. You can draw your own conclusions. I'm just showing you some stuff. Greg Zapp has said about photography that I don't have a direct relationship with a camera. I've never been that kind of photographer. So even though he teaches photography, he's actually a photography professor at Yale, he doesn't have a direct relationship to a camera. But does that matter? Surely it's all about the images, right? That's what counts. And what's undeniable is that the former rhythm guitarist of power pop group The Speedies, Greg Zapp, is a huge success. He's enormously successful. He's represented by the influential Gagosian Gallery, and his prints can sell for well over $100,000. And people just love his work. He's feted by academics and celebrities. They are literally lining up to spout utter guff about how he's a master of mood and Lynchian atmosphere, and how he hints at the disquieting underbelly that lurks at the infected heart of America, or whatever. I mean, just listen to them.
Obviously a deep-time, huge admirer of your work.
Am I losing my mind? But this was my kind of, is this an over-elaborate reaction? But there's something celestial about these photographs.
I mean, that's a great reading of it, and I'm all for it.
Of course he's all for it. Even he seems stunned by all the gushing. But the problem is that these photographs just leave me cold. And I want to try and explain why. I don't just want to slag off Greg Zapp Crewdson for no reason. But I do have several problems and issues with his photographs. And the main problem that I have with his photographs stem from Joel Sternfeld. Now, I know they are very different artists, and in one sense it's unfair to compare them because I'm not comparing like with like. But at the same time, Greg Zapp has been completely open about his admiration for Sternfeld and the influence on his work, and so it's just unavoidable. In fact, some of Greg Zapp's images seem to be purposely invoking or channeling Sternfeld. Remember Exhausted Renegade Elephant? Well, now take a look at this. This is Untitled Dead Cow Discovery from the Twilight series in 1998. Again, it's taken from up high, and there's a collapsed animal at the centre of it, which presumably they bought from a slaughterhouse, and maybe they even all ate it later on and turned it into burgers for the cast of about 20 extras. And you know, it's an effective, creepy, kooky tableau. But to me, there's something missing. There's an absence. And now look at the car in this one. Greg Zapp has said that he deliberately chooses these visually distinctive, boxy old American cars as they were exactly the kind that Sternfeld found naturally while making American Prospects. Like this car in Sternfeld's After the Flash Flood. Or again in this one, Untitled Sewer Mystery, 1999, again from Twilight, which has both the boxy cars and also can't help but invoke Sternfeld's pumpkin fire. Incidentally, this is just one of what Greg Zapp has called his many collaborations with local fire departments, as he incinerates all kinds of stuff in the name of his deep artistic vision. I think it's telling that so many of these images are called Untitled. It strikes me that's because they don't really have a story. They're not about anything. They just want to be weird. They want to be Halloween-y. Or maybe the truth is they want to be Joel Sternfeld pictures, but they can't. The reason Joel Sternfeld is a truly great photographer, the reason he's a real artist, is because his work is about something. It has meaning. It's serious, and it derives from actual life. Yes, his photographs can be moody and atmospheric, or they can be funny, or they can be strange and unsettling, but if you dig deeper, you can uncover real stories that enhance and elevate the images. So this actual exhausted elephant was called Ty. It was owned by a man called Morgan Berry, who was a world-famous animal trainer and the first person to breed elephants in the Western Hemisphere. A year before this photo was taken, Berry's partner, Eloise Berthold, was killed by another elephant called Teak while performing in a circus in Canada. And while Ty here was being stumbled upon and photographed by Sternfeld, Morgan Berry himself was being trampled upon to death by another one of his elephants called Tonga at his farm not too far away. Now, you didn't need to know all those facts to appreciate this photo, but the reality adds an extra layer. It adds emotion, it adds real stories and real people, it adds depth. There's no such backstory to any of Greg Zapp Crewdson's work. It's just empty. It's a pose. These are actors or locals chosen for a look and then told to stare moodily off at camera and think of nothing. He collaborates with the fire department and gets them to set stuff on fire, probably for a fee, and yes, if you know the real story behind this image, then you'll also know that it was actually a training exercise that Sternfeld came across and not an accidental fire. But that doesn't bother me. That doesn't make it any worse or ruin it, because it was also a real thing, a real training exercise that actually happened. It still looks spectacular. Sternfeld probably only had one shot at it, and he absolutely nailed it. He couldn't just shout cut and then get them to do it all over again. The real story can only add, never detract. And there's another thing that really annoys me about Zap Crewdson's work, and that is, it's all the bloody same. Every single photo is this repeating moody tableau where people are troubled or looking off into the distance or slouch disconsolately to evoke an atmosphere of dread or some looming problem. There's no humour or variety ever. There's a great quote by the blacklisted but Oscar-winning screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, who said, "What the imagination can't conjure, reality delivers with a shrug." And that to me sums up the difference between Crewdson and Sternfeld perfectly. Greg Zapp is always struggling to think up more kooky scenarios, but he keeps on just repeating himself. Sternfeld gets out into the world, he engages with reality, and it delivers it up for him, with a shrug, but it's still a winner. And another thing about Sternfeld's work is that it's got more serious as he's got older. He's gone on to do books about, amongst other things, failed utopias, climate change, and the sites of murders and tragedies. But American Prospects strive to show the variety of a whole country. Sternfeld knows that life is truly complex. For all the tragedies he might stumble across, he also finds hope and joy, community and wonder and humour. His photographs are as multifaceted as life itself, because they come from real life, not from a pose. The more I look at Greg Zapp's work, the more I realise what its relentless, detailed artifice reminds me of, and that's a fashion shoot. These are just incredibly expensive fashion shoots, in which frequently the actors or models don't wear many clothes, but just lounge around looking depressed and troubled. It should come as no surprise then, that in 2020, Crewdson collaborated with a Belgian designer fashion label, Namenchenko, to produce a range of knitwear that apparently explores the psychological underside of the American vernacular, or some such bilge. I doubt there'll ever be a collaboration between Joel Sternfeld and a fashion designer. Maybe a brand of shampoo, but even that's unlikely. He's too busy going off and engaging with real life and producing amazing photographs. He's heavy metal, whereas Greg Zapp is power pop. His photographs are full of deeper meaning, whereas Crewdson's are as hollow and empty as a Halloween pumpkin carved by a pair of surly 12-year-olds. My name is Stephen Leslie, and this has been Show and Tell. Thanks for watching, and to everyone who's subscribed, please sign up down below, and I'll try and do another one of these soon. Although, what with half term, it's probably going to take a little while.